The growth of F1 has been exponential in recent years. Such has been the success of F1 that Toto Wolff is now a billionaire, and teams are requesting vast sums of money for a new entry into the sport. The growing audience has left F1 and the FIA in a tricky situation, as the sport needs to ensure it keeps the sport entertaining while also sticking to the core of its original success. And one of the most recent decisions has not gone down well with team bosses. There are a number of driving forces behind the growth of the sport, but one key success has been the introduction of the Drive to Survive show, and love it or hate it, the Netflix show has helped expand the audience of F1, but the sport now faces a crossroads with the ever-growing audience numbers and having to please the masses. A growing audience is great commercially for the teams and F1 as a brand, but keeping the growing audience is the hardest element of TV. For this to happen, the F1 and FIA need to think of new ways to keep the sport at the forefront of entertainment, as they have to compete with numerous sports for viewers' attention. And like all things in entertainment, there is a fine line between engaging the audience and engineering drama, as many felt this was the cause for the finish in Australia with not one, but 3 red flags and a processional final lap. I think most will agree that Australia was great entertainment, but you also can't help but feel, were the rules followed correctly? Was all of this just for the entertainment and the drama? Something that Toto Wolff also wants to be clarified. Both red flags we didn't see coming, he said. Restarts are a great entertainment factor, but we need to understand going forward when a red flag is being put out and when it is a safety car or a VSC. For those incidents, you could have applied either. Formula One is so successful because it is sport and we follow the rule book, and that gives great entertainment, as long as it is clear how it is being interpreted. Now, rules in sports are up for interpretation, with F1 being no different. If you're a fan of the Premier League, you will see multiple errors being made or laws being misinterpreted, even though they have multiple checks in place, in particular, the dreaded VAR. All teams, drivers and fans want is consistency when it comes to the rules and how they are interpreted. Now, there will always be some inconsistency, but what F1 has to be careful of is engineering drama, which many feel is what they did in Abu Dhabi under the guise of letting the boys race. As popular as the sport has become, engaging the audience on the sport is far harder. It's not easy, as everyone wants something different. It's not just like they can bring in cheerleaders and attract the crowd. F1 fans expect so much more than that, and with numbers down from last year in the same space of time as 2022, the sport is looking to evolve the weekend to ensure that there is entertainment throughout the weekend and not just on race day. And that is exactly what F1 and the FIA are looking to do. Ferrari boss Frederic Vasseur confirmed that there will be changes at Baku. In Baku, you have 2 qualis and the 2 races, and we have to be able as a team to do a better job. For once, I think all the teams were aligned. It's not very often that it's the case, so we have to jump on it, said Vasseur. I like the format. I'm not a big fan of the usual FP2 second practice. Sometimes it's a bit boring. To try to have something more dynamic during the weekend is a good decision. The Ferrari team principal said that the sport was probably the only one where they show the training sessions. For example, it's not like you watch your favorite football or NFL team practice on Wednesday. Of course you don't, it's boring. This is exactly why F1 is changing the format of how the current race weekend is done. Previous sprint weekends had a practice session on Friday, followed by a qualifying for Saturday's race. The top 8 in that sprint, which set the grid for Sunday's main Grand Prix, scored points. The second practice session sat awkwardly before the sprint race. Now there will be just 1 practice, followed by Friday qualifying for Sunday's race, and then another qualifying on Saturday for the sprint, which still awards points, but no longer has a direct link to the Grand Prix. Personally, I think this is great, as before we used to see teams not really push in the sprint race due to the risk of crashing out, all for the sake of 1 or 2 points. It just became a procession rather than a sprint race, because essentially we have 2 separate races with neither of them affecting the other. This allows the teams to really go for it and push for the maximum amount of points, and we could actually see some overtaking during the race. Now, this is potentially great for us as fans, but if you're a team boss, you may just be sitting on the pit wall with your heart in your mouth, as adding more competitiveness to the race weekend also means more opportunities to crash, and more crashes means more money. Just ask Gunter Steiner, who recently opened up about how much Schumacher cost him in typical Gunter fashion. It happened on the in-lap. On the in-lap, Sure, it was very wet out there on the track, but nobody else managed to write off a car while they were driving back to the pits. We lose a car after 5 minutes and now have to build another. I cannot have a driver who I'm not confident can take a car around safely on a slow lap. It's just ridiculous. How many people could we employ with $700,000? And I have to now find that money, said Steiner. He did use some colorful language in his original statement, but YouTube won't let us say that stuff unfortunately, but I think you get the point. Crashing is expensive and the cost cap has been adjusted for this, but during a time when there is a reducing budget cap, is an increasing number of sprint races really the answer to the entertainment of the sport? Horner is on the same page as Steiner, with the Red Bull team principal critical of the choice of Baku as a sprint race. The reality is it's absolutely ludicrous to be doing the first sprint race of the year in a street race like Azerbaijan. I think from a spectacle point of view, from a fan point of view, it's probably going to be one of the most exciting sprint races of the year. From a cost cap perspective, all you can do is trash your car, and it costs a lot of money around there. So one race is enough in Baku. The fact that we've got two, there could well be some action there. And he was not the only team boss with concerns, and the nervousness could be felt amongst the paddock, with McLaren chief Zak Brown warning of the danger of big crash damage bills. While Aston Martin's Mike Crack admitted his nervousness, and Alpine boss Otmar Zafnauer said his team would be stockpiling spare parts as a precaution. Horner did go on to say this is part of the sport and needs to be handled and managed correctly. But that's part of the challenge and it's part of the task that we've got. Hopefully we can tidy up the format for the sprint races coming up, that they're a bit more dynamic. I know that the sporting directors have been working hard on that, and hopefully we can get that finalized. To be honest, that sounds like a you problem and not one that us F1 fans should worry about, and it looks like Toto Wolff disagrees with us on the new format and that he thinks that there should be more caution towards changes to the format. We just need to find a common denominator of what the best principle is, Wolff said. I'm more on the conservative side. I like qualifying, I like the Grand Prix, the great prize. But we have also to be open-minded about where the sport is going to go, and some of the sprint races have been fantastic. I guess Toto's biggest worry is why to change a formula that is working and ensuring that the sport does not become gimmicky and just doing it for the viewers. We are pretty sure he doesn't mind the direction that F1 is going after. It was recently noted that he is now worth over $1 billion due to the sport's rise in popularity. And not bad, Toto, not bad. The Mercedes team principal did back Stefano fully in the same interview, but was cautious of how the sport should go about it. So whatever Stefano decides is good, I think he will have all the data on the table, what is good for the audiences, what is good for the brand. And then we just want to maybe try and tweak things without using a baseball bat, but a Stanley knife, a more precise way to cut it. The Austrian did go on to highlight key areas such as the engine mileage and the tires for the vehicles would not be sufficient in the current format, and he also echoed his fellow team bosses of a risk of crashing the vehicle. In qualifying, you have less opportunity to put the car on the wall, but with two races, which we always knew, there's more at risk, and you're back-to-back with the next race in Miami, so that can be a problem with replacing damaged parts, said Toto Wolff. We have given our opinion on what we think of the new format. What is yours? Do you agree with it or not? Comment below.